Hi, I'm Kim Eddleston, here with Entrepreneur and Innovation Exchange. Today I'm here with two women serial entrepreneurs. First is Susan Penta, who's an engineer, serial entrepreneur, educator, and consultant, and is founder of Meteor. She also was recently chairman of the board for the Center for Women and Enterprise. She's won multiple awards for her work with women entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs in general. Most recently, she won the Advocate of the Year Award from the Center for Women and Enterprise and the very prestigious Pinnacle Award for Achievement in Entrepreneurship. Thank you for being here, Susan. And our other guest is Sandra Powers Murphy. She's the founder of two companies. She's a globally recognized investment management, marketing, and sales consultant. She founded ARC Global, and she also founded Noble Arc Ventures, which just recently published her book, The Road to AUM, where AUM stands for Assets Under Management. Also, both ladies, Susan and Sandra, are members of the Women's Presidents Organization, a global organization of women entrepreneurs. So thank you for being here today, Susan and Sandra. So we're going to be talking about women entrepreneurs. While both of them are women entrepreneurs, in their roles associated with different organizations and even with their businesses, they've worked with countless entrepreneurs and women entrepreneurs, helping to inspire them, educate them, and help them build and grow their businesses. So, to begin, women represent one of the fastest growing segments of the entrepreneurship population worldwide. Why do you think this is so?
All right, let's just say finally, right?
Yes.
We like that statistic. I think for me, I would say there are finally more female role models, and some of what maybe stood in the way of a woman starting a business was access and not having the confidence because they don't see anybody around them that's female actually being successful. I think that has changed. I think there's a drive towards independence for women, and one of the things that entrepreneurship is associated with is independence, being in control of your own destiny. So I guess my initial reaction is that. I'll look at Sandra.
I would just add, I think we live in a global marketplace now, and there's so much access to information, and technology has also eased the way. So a lot of businesses can be run entirely online, and there's also a great variety of mentors, speakers, opportunities for online tutorials for women who want to start something a little bit different and unique. So I think the business platform today to start something is different. Also, a lot more women are attending college today. The numbers are really spiking, and as a result, we have a lot more educated women entering the workforce who really want to take advantage of business opportunities of all different shapes and sizes.
And to that end, here in Boston, virtually every higher ed institution that has anything to do with business has a resource for entrepreneurship, and there are specific resources for women, and that is very different. There's also been a lot of money put into, I think, support resources, curriculum and such by the Small Business Administration, for example, into organizations like CWE, the Center for Women in Enterprise, focused on supporting women starting and building their own business. So I think that is different today.
So while that's the good news, we're seeing more and more women starting their own businesses. In the literature, they'll talk about women-owned businesses being slower growing and less financially successful than those owned by men. What do you think about that? Is that true? Why is
We're on camera here, right? So,
Well,
Sandra start.
I think it depends how you define success. So I certainly think that if we're defining success solely from a financial lens, there's a lot of factors that play into that. One, women are newer into the entrepreneurial workforce, so that's going to take some time to accelerate. In addition to that, though, I think for many women, part of why they start a business is to have independence and to have flexibility. Not that there's an elephant in the room, but I think the notion of women trying to balance a family as well makes it such that they want to be able to run a business on their own terms. And as a result, their definition of success may be tons of financial independence, but not needing to have hundreds of employees, being fine having a handful of employees or having a longer term, more sustainable business model where they can really help clients in a way that they're passionate about. So I think if we define success differently, women are doing great in the entrepreneurial landscape.
And I would say, based on my own experience mentoring entrepreneurs, teaching entrepreneurship, being an entrepreneur, I support exactly what Sandra's saying around the success measure. For women, success can vary widely. I think for most men that I know, I'll limit it to my own experience, success is very much intertwined with revenue, with value creation, with number of jobs created in this company at this time. And I think you'd really need to look across all of the companies founded and owned by women, even if they're smaller, and look in the aggregate and say, okay, well, how many jobs are there? How long have those jobs been around compared to the companies that have been created by men and maybe might have more jobs in a given year, but also might not be here in 5 years. So I think for women, it is very different depending on the woman that you talk to.
So you're bringing up a good point. Women might define success differently. So how do you think most women define success?
Well, I think one of the undercurrents that I certainly see is, as Sandra mentioned, independence, right? Being able to be in control of your own destiny and your own schedule. And that often does have to do with balance, whether that's work-life balance or work-family balance. It's also pace, right? Many women, for better or worse, have many more things going on in their lives than just work. I would say that success is, a hard thing for a woman to say. Am I just going to define it by money? I can't possibly just define it by money.
Do you think women manage their businesses differently because of that?
I think they do manage their businesses differently. I also think what I have found about women and being part of the Women Presidents Organization has given an interesting lens to this for me, is that women really define success as how their reputation and what their clients think. And it's less about the pure numbers of, okay, we kept this many clients, we went after this big fish client. It's more, we've had a long-standing set of clients that we've done a really good job for. It's a very manageable business. So I do think they define success differently in general, but you're always going to have the outliers. I think it's a little bit more, I'm not sure it's just about relationships, but I think it's about being able to add value in whatever it is you've chosen to set up this business for, whatever it is that you're that passionate about. I think for most women, at least that I interact with, it wasn't just about getting to a revenue number. It was because they have this true passion for what it is they're doing for their clients, for the community, for a marketplace. And that to me is not only a definition of success, but what's exciting about seeing more and more women in business.
So now I have a very interesting question for you based on an article that we published on Entrepreneur and Innovation Exchange by Lou Marino and Reg Tucker. And the article suggested that a small dose of psychopathy, meaning a non-clinical level, was associated with women's intentions to start a business, but not men's. And they discussed how psychopathy, because it supports a willingness to challenge social expectations and gender norms, it appears to benefit women and give maybe a bit of an edge in entrepreneurship. So what are your thoughts? Are you psychopaths?
Hopefully not. I've never really thought about myself that way.
Non-clinical level.
Which means logic, cold-headedness, that kind of thing.
Exactly. So
a little less emotional content about things.
Yeah, making decisions based a little bit more on logic than emotion. Not always putting others first. So making more, again, logical business decisions. And the other thing was being willing to not care so much about what others think. So your decisions aren't always trying to put others first all the time. And it seemed to be an important factor for women, but not men. So what are your thoughts?
Well, it sounds like it's an important factor for all human beings to have some of those traits, and remember to put your own oxygen mask on first sometimes. But I do think part of what women entrepreneurs do well is that they are able to manage multiple things. They're able to stay cool-headed. They're able to separate the emotions in general. I'm not so sure that I've ever thought about that so much as a male-female trait, because being a good entrepreneur in general not only means you can start something, it means you can maintain a staff and you can build a company. And if you're heavily emotional or not looking out in the best interests of your company, and also making sure you're kind of planning carefully, that those companies tend to burn out. So I think those characteristics are important for all of us to have a little touch of, and if women entrepreneurs have that, all the better.
And if that's called psychopathy, that's news to me, but that's
Yes.
that's very interesting. I would say that being about the work, whether that's about the problem that you're solving in your company or about the customers that you're helping through your product or service, is a tie that binds all entrepreneurs. So like Sandra, I would say I haven't really distinguished that as a male or female trait. I would say that for me, throughout my life, I've been unusual as a female because I haven't really cared what people thought. The thing that you just talked about, that triggered that in me. I am going to do what's right and just, or I'm going to do what is best for my client, or what is best for my team or my firm. And if that's not the most popular answer, that's not something, I'm not going to suggest I don't care about it, but it's just not a high priority. So if we talk about that as, what did you call it, non-clinical psychopathy, then perhaps, I'm an engineer, so I'm logical. So there is a piece of me that's just naturally logical, and I'm going to assess the situation and come up with a strategy based on that logic, and of course some emotional intelligence, put against that. But I would say I've never really thought about it as male or female, but I could see that women are often in the more emotional and supportive roles, and so maybe that's not as common.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Because having this non-clinical level of psychopathy also means a willingness to challenge norms, and in their article they actually talk about potentially challenging gender norms. And they suggested that was why it was very, very important that women had a dose of it tied to entrepreneurship. What are your feelings on that? So being willing to, let's say, challenge traditional feminine gender roles.
I mean, that's a hard one for me, because growing up, which is 150 years ago now, I had to mow the lawn just like my brother. So I wasn't brought up in a way with those gender stereotypes or gender norms, and I went to an engineering school, so I can see that might make a difference, but that isn't the way that I've thought about it. When I encounter, however, women who are looking to start businesses, and in particular women who are disadvantaged and whatnot, I will say this: my experience is if they don't have a supportive spouse, or if they don't have a supportive significant other, they are less likely to start. So somewhere in there's something that's related to this. And so in that way, perhaps if the woman cared less about what people thought, or didn't feel as though she needed that male support or the support of her spouse, maybe she would be more likely to start and take the risk.
Okay, good. Any thoughts, Sandra?
Yeah, I mean, I think gender norms, definitely, there is a component of what support system you have in general. Running a business, starting a business is challenging, and it requires a lot of flexibility and all hands on deck, if you will. So I certainly think there's a question of gender norms of what the expectation is around being a woman in business who's also serving as a mother, and where your time is and is not spent. But I see a lot of successful women who are able to balance that. I would say it's more a challenge of having the type of personality where you're sort of willing to double down on both of those activities all at once, intertwined. That's I think, a bigger challenge related to the gender norm piece, because I'm not sure becoming a women entrepreneur means you don't still play that other gender norm role in many ways. We're both mothers, and that's an important part of what matters to us, and also I think what drives how I think about business, how I think about my employees, how I think about us as a business in the community and working with other people. So I'm not sure that there's a challenge of gender norms that I specifically addressed, but I do think there's clearly some components there. I will also say an interesting component that Susan just referenced. My mother worked when I was growing up. We always worked from the minute that we could. That was just an expectation. I went to college on scholarship for a sport. We were driven to be active, and it didn't matter whether you were male or female in our house. You were expected to participate and participate fully. So whether that drives some sense of what my gender norms are, which is that we're equal opportunity or not.
Right, equal opportunity. And something that you just said, Sandra, that made me think about the fact that every entrepreneur I know is typically someone that does a lot, right? They are driven, whether they're type A or not, I couldn't say, but they are driven by the objective, and they're always doing many things. Now, for women, that is the thing that often bucks the gender norm, right? Because if you are an entrepreneur and a CEO, and you're going to work every day, and your kids are in daycare, and you're still going home at night to your other job, and whether you have a spouse that helps more or less, it's complicated for people outside your own circle to appreciate your desire to do all of those things. That's the part that I think is hard, but that's also the thing that binds entrepreneurs together, is we do a lot, right? The people that volunteer the most often have the least time.